don't know who needs to hear this today, but I just want to remind you that life is rooting for you and not against you. And this is exactly why. Welcome to Carla Turned On, where dating and relationships get real, sex gets talked about, and the BS gets left on red. Let's get turned on. And before you give up and throw in the towel and you're like, no, Carla, that's not true. Here's fucking why. I think sometimes we believe that there is some payoff to life, that we're going to finally get there and everything will be perfect and everything will be great. And if you're sitting there like, no, not at all. Okay, good. That's a healthy place to be. If you're sitting there like, yeah, I completely relate. Like, when am I going to fucking get my day in life where everything is finally good? The shoes stop dropping. I'm finally in a place where I'm happy and everything's actually working out for me and not against me. And when I think it's working out for me, it's not working out for me. And then all of a sudden I'm back in that cycle and negative loop. Okay, I hear you. And no, it doesn't mean that you're unhealthy in thinking, but I can tell you as somebody personally who used to feel like I needed things to finally work out for me in order to be happy. Hello, codependency. Hello, low self-worth. Hello, needing external things for internal validation because I didn't feel that myself, but that's all a different story. And yes, I talk about that on other Carla Turned On episodes. If you haven't checked those out, definitely do so. But what I'm trying to say here, life has a funny way of working out in ways that we might have not expected, or maybe in ways that we necessarily didn't want, but it ended up working out somehow. I want you to think about a time in your life that was really difficult. Maybe right now you're going through the shitter and you're like, joke's on you, Carla. The time right now is meow. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't know. I feel stuck. I feel like nothing's going to work out. I have been there many times myself. I honestly have. There have been many moments, and I'm going to be honest, it has come out a lot in relationships. A lot of relationships ending, or me thinking, oh, this is the one, this is it, and it ending, or them cheating, or them leaving, or breaking up with me suddenly, or something comes out, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, no, this isn't right. Like, I don't want to be with somebody who's got X, Y, and Z. There's a lot, right? There's a lot that I've personally been through where I've been like, is life testing me? Like, what the fuck is this? And I consider myself a spiritual person. I am not religious, but I'm spiritual. And hey, if religion's your thing, great. If spirituality isn't, great, like, doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to say is that I rely on a source, power, universe, whatever the fuck you want to call it, greater than myself. And I use that as a way to kind of let go of control and get through life and get through the hard times. But even in my lows of lows, I would think, what the hell is, like, does the spirituality exist? And I think personally, we're going to go on a little tangent here. I think personally, it's healthy to question spirituality because that's actually kind of the longevity of life, of going through things and using your spiritual source in any kind of way to help you get through life, but questioning it in the sense of, you know, where are you? How do I build this relationship deeper within myself and my spiritual source? So anyways, I know I'm digressing, but here's the truth. Life is about the ups and downs. You cannot have that happiness, that high highs, without those low lows. It doesn't work if you only have the highs and you don't have any lows, because then you wouldn't have a high. I'm not saying that you should go through shit and you should go through the ups and downs, but what I'm trying to say that is, if you are in a down, you are experiencing that heartbreak. You are experiencing that feeling of, I'm never going to find anyone. You're experiencing that feeling of, why does life always work out for these people but never work out for me? I don't want you to give up, because life keeps moving. It keeps evolving, and everything in life always passes. So even these moments that you feel so stuck in that you're never going to get out of, pass. I have friends who are from India and they were visiting here, and I was hanging out with them, and I hadn't seen them in 3 years since my India trip when I went to visit them. And I did also some solo travel, which was freaking epic. Okay. But the point I'm trying to make is, I hadn't seen him in 3 years. At this point, when I saw him last, I was single. I wasn't married, and now I'm married, and my husband and I had them over for dinner, and then we like got together and did a lot of fun things with them. And it was funny because I was talking to my friend, and she was talking about where I was previous and how quickly life can change. And we don't always see what's around the corner, but life always works out. And I had this inkling when I was in Goa and I was on my trip in India, where all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back on the dating apps. I just feel this calling to get back on the apps. And I did. And shortly after, I went on many dates after I met my husband, but I didn't give up. And I kept processing and going through life. And so if you're feeling stuck in the trenches, or there's something that you feel, whether it's even work related, doesn't even have to be heartbreak or whatever, and you feel like you can't get past it, bullshit. You will absolutely get past it. Just keep fucking showing up for life. Okay, now that we all got all hot and heavy on that, I am super excited to talk about on Carla Turned On today, all around, and this is my turn off rant. Okay, this is going to be the turn off rant. Why people praise the bare minimum. Yes, I don't understand, right? I get green flags. We can talk about green flags, and that's important. Like green flag, green flag, green flag. Yes. But why are we praising the bare minimum? We're going to talk about that in just a moment before I get all into it. And then we're also going to be diving into the difference between healthy vulnerability and trauma dumping, and how to actually share your trauma. Look, maybe you're like, I didn't have any past trauma. Okay, that's fine. But if you're in a relationship or you're dating somebody who has past trauma, which lots of fucking people have trauma, past trauma or trauma, whatever, it's out there. The trauma is out there. I'm going to talk and break down exactly how to share about it in a healthy way. And this can be a variety. It doesn't matter whether your trauma is really tiny feeling, or it's really big, or it's childhood, or something that happened as an adult. I'm going to break down exactly a healthy way to talk about your trauma without trauma bonding. And I need to clarify the trauma bonding piece, because people are like, trauma bonding is abuse. Yes, that's part of the abuse cycle. I'm talking about like actually like bonding over trauma, not like psychological term of like trauma bonding in abusive relationships. Okay. And then of course we're going to talk about it, talking about coming in orgasms. Oh no, I know. All about how body image and sex play a huge role when it comes to sleeping together. All right. But first, let's get turned off. Complimenting the bare minimum. They actually texted to make a plan. They texted me back. They got there on time. They didn't overshare about their ex. Okay, I get 100%. These are all green flags. Okay, these are green flags. And I don't want to discredit green flags. Like if you're used to seeing the red flags and you're like, holy shit, this is a green flag. This feels good. I'm not trying to damper your day, okay? Like, I think you should celebrate the green flags. Like, this is a good thing. But I think it is a problem when we start celebrating the bare minimum. They showed up on time. Yeah, they should fucking show up on time. Like, that is what you do when you're building trust with somebody new. The other thing, too, that I'm just going to flat out say is when you start complimenting the bare minimum, you, in a way, are invalidating the things that could be really great later on too. Like the things that are special and important. I always say you go into the date bare minimum. I tell my clients this all the time. You go into that date with the bare minimum. That is the bare minimum. And then from there, what do you learn? What can you see? Does anything grow? That's where you want to highlight and be like, yes, X, Y, Z. These are all important things. It's frustrating when people are only like, oh, well, they had a red flag so bad and they had this amazing text back after the date. So, oh my gosh, amazing, amazing, amazing. Let's hype this up. No, you still need to see, are we actually compatible? Not just because they treat you like a human being, but are you actually compatible beyond just that? And there's a reason why you might compliment the bare minimum. And I want to be very, very clear here. If you have been in toxic relationships or unhealthy relationships in any type of way, the bare minimum might feel so refreshing and so good. For example, I have a client and he was always used to putting more into the relationship and not getting much back. He always had to chase. He always had to follow up with people and never got that back, that reciprocity. And so he finally got that reciprocity back on planning a third date with somebody who reached out and was like, yeah, like I'm going out of town, but let's plan this date for when I'm back. And he was really touched by it. I don't want to diminish moments like that because that is important, right? That's part of healing. That's part of feeling safe again in relationships. That's part of learning to trust again in relationships. But it is such a it just bothers me so badly though when we try to highlight, oh my gosh, they did this and this and this and this. And it's like, God damn it. You know, we should be treated, everybody, men and women should be treated with a bare minimum of how you treat human beings with decency, which can feel hard right now. And you're probably dating. You're like, yeah, absolutely, Carla. I am not feeling this. I'm not. The bare minimum is like exceeding. It's like the top of the roller coaster. We have hit our peak. I get that. I get that. But I think if we compliment too much, all right, if we compliment too much here around why whatever they did is just outstanding and amazing, we actually take away from the things that are important to look at from the bare minimum and beyond. And then here's a little warning flag. And this is why it's a really big turnoff. Because number one, you might bond too fast. You feel like all of a sudden this person did the bare minimum, boom, doesn't matter about what's above the bare minimum. You might end up dismissing some things that come up that lack compatibility or could even be red flags, honestly. And then this is a big one that can get you in a cycle of looking at potential versus the reality. So it's like, oh, well, the first couple of dates, they texted back, they set the date up, they were on time, they told me they had a good time, they complimented me. This is all great. So then you just kind of throw everything else out, and you're like, well, they're doing all this amazing stuff. You must put them on a pedestal for being bare minimum. And I am a anti-pedestal friend here. Is that a thing? Is that a fucking thing? An anti-pedestal friend? We are. I'm just going to roll with that one right now. And I'm just going to say that when you put people on pedestals, you're creating unrealistic expectations. And when you put somebody on a pedestal, what happens? They eventually become a human being, and boom, they level down, and boom, they're a human being, and boom, you're disappointed. So, yeah, that is why it is a turnoff. And this is why we look at bare minimum, and we are not discrediting green flags. We're not discrediting that it's good that they have the bare minimum, but we need to focus on what is beyond the bare fucking minimum. Which brings me into a topic that is very uncomfortable: trauma. I have to tell you, I have lots of clients who have experienced trauma. I have experienced trauma myself, not just relationship trauma, but different types of trauma from childhood. And I can tell you right now, as somebody who was trying to date and navigate healing from trauma, well, honestly, before I even healed from trauma, when my early relationships, high school and college and early adulthood, and then healing, going through the healing process of trauma, and then what it looks like to be healed from trauma. And I want to very much disclaimer that once you are healed, quote unquote, healed from trauma, it's not. It's a journey. Like you're constantly, you can get triggered. That is normal. You might feel like, oh my God, I'm regressing. No, you're not regressing. Okay. You actually just notice your triggers, which is a normal thing, especially if you've had PTSD or anything like that around trauma. Now, I'm going to say this up front. If you have experienced any type of trauma, it is so important to speak with a counselor, therapist, mental health professional. Okay. I, as a coach, am not equipped to heal your trauma. I'm going to put that out there. And any coach who is not a therapist who says that they can heal your trauma is a big fucking red flag. Run. I have lots of clients who've experienced trauma, and I have tools of ways to navigate trauma that they've worked through or trauma that they're working with therapists with. That is actually very powerful. So I want to be very clear here. I'm not here to heal your trauma. If that is the case, it is important to get help professionally. And there's amazing ways to do this. There's trauma informed therapists that have things around somatic therapy and EMDR. I did lots of EMDR. So if you're like, cool, what's that? Okay, like I'm telling you, go seek that shit out. It might feel scary, but it is amazing once you get through the other end. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make here is when you are dating and you've experienced trauma in the past, there is a way to healthily share about your trauma. Clients are always asking me, Carla, I had this incident happen to me when I was younger. How do I share about it? Or I had this really traumatic experience in my last relationship. How do I share about it? Or I had a lot of childhood trauma around abuse with my parents. And as a result, I have a hard time trusting, but I've worked on it through therapy. How do I talk about it? So we are going to talk about it. Just kidding. This is not the time to talk about coming and orgasms. But I will say right now that there are healthy ways to share. This is how you build the trust, safety, and security. That is going to be key here. This is how you learn how to healthily attach in a secure way in relationships. Now, if you have ever been like me in the past and maybe something traumatic happened to you and it's either you hold back completely or you floodgate it. I used to only think that I could find somebody to be in a relationship with who had crazy trauma in their past, childhood, divorced parents, all this kind of stuff, abusive father, blah, 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 like all the things, right? And I thought if I found somebody else who experienced this type of trauma or something similar that was terrible, then we would get each other because I felt like I wasn't going to be understood by somebody else who had a normal upbringing or didn't have this type of trauma. Boy, was I wrong, but that's okay because it led me exactly where I needed to go in life. And I can tell you right now that you can have trauma from your past and be with somebody and have a healthy connection and a healthy marriage and relationship. I'm guilty as charged right here, and not have a partner who had significant childhood trauma. That is a thing, okay? but it's all about how you manage it. So typically, if somebody is oversharing on a date, say you go on a date with somebody, maybe you're like, I didn't really have trauma, but you go on a date with somebody and they start diving in on date number one or two, all the past trauma. We're going to use a perfect example of somebody who was in a very unhealthy relationship and let's say it was abusive and they got out of it. So they're on the date and the person asked, when was your last relationship? What was the reason it ended? And instead of somebody giving a high level of, well, I was in a relationship. It wasn't the healthiest. I was able to get out of it. And I've done a lot of therapy since then in terms of my healing. And I'm in a really healthy place now. But yeah, it ended about a year and a half ago. Okay, great. Healthy, check. That is textbook example of how you want to talk about trauma and not dump and how you want to talk about trauma in a healthy way on a date. But if the person goes into, well, a year and a half ago, my ex and I broke up. It was really, it was this relationship and, this person was abusive and they did a lot of things. Like at the end of the relationship, they stalked me a lot and they kept calling my phone and they kept emailing and I had to get a restraining order. And then in the relationship, like it got physical sometimes. It was like really scary. And, there was like a lot of breaking up and getting back together. And, but I felt bad because at the end of the day, like this person had a lot of, childhood issues. So I understood like they were trying their hardest, but at the end of the day, it wasn't like always working out. Okay, that is way too much. You have already given this person or received the information to a complete stranger. You do not know this person. You have to gain someone's trust. You do not get to trust freely, and you don't get to trust this person freely. You need to build that trust, and it needs to be a mutual thing here. Because in order to actually be vulnerable, you have to build that into it. I'm going to give you a 3-step process that I find extremely helpful when sharing trauma with the person you're on a date with. Okay. So here's the key here. It's not about what happened to you. Obviously, like that's important. Like I'm not taking away your story, but the goal here isn't about you processing it with them because that's not appropriate in the beginning. Later on in a relationship where you have stability, you have the actual commitment, then hell yeah, that is healthy to be able to talk to your partner about any triggers that are coming up, being able to work through anything that's arising in the relationship and affecting your current relationship or just affecting yourself, which then in turn affects the relationship, and being able to work with your partner around that to feeling safe and secure in a relationship when you're having those triggers. But when you are certainly on a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th date, I'm going to tell you right now, do not overshare. This is step one in how you are going to share about your trauma. Hey, real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want dating support, don't forget to look in the notes below where you can learn all about my guides and how to work with me. And if you want to follow me on my socials, you can find me anywhere at I am Carla Romo. Let's get turned on. First off, you want to make sure you keep it to one sentence. Yes, I know. You are going to find a way to talk about trauma in one sentence. This is the highest level of all highs that you can possibly get. And I had a client. She went through significant trauma. And unfortunately, she went through significant trauma in her past relationship. And when she's on dates, she shares a little bit about it. And then sometimes people probe and start asking questions, which is inappropriate. And I always say when somebody starts asking questions around your trauma, it's not about you. They're not actually concerned for you. They're not trying to actually help you because there's no basis of trust. There's no basis of security. You don't have a foundation of a relationship. I'm not saying that they're insensitive, but people ask because they're concerned about how do I prevent it? That's what they're thinking about. It's not actually the focus on the person that had the trauma. It's around, oh my God, how do I prevent that from happening? Or what are the signs so that I know if something like that's happening for myself? It's not that they're heartless unless they're a psychopath, but most people aren't psychopaths. So we're just going to give them the benefit of the doubt here and say that they're just asking inappropriate questions and you need to put a stop to that and a boundary. But number one is you give one sentence. So for example, I'm going to use me as a perfect example when I was going on dates and my last relationship ended. It was an engagement and it ended due to red flags that I observed on his part. Infidelity was absolutely confirmed. There were some other big red flags that were going on as well. And it ended very abruptly. I was living in another city at the time. I even moved back in with my mom temporarily. Like I moved states, cities, like all of those things to get out of that relationship. And then I did a lot of healing on my own. So I processed it. I got a therapist immediately. Like I started working through the trauma of it, the breakup of it, everything. When I was ready to date, this is what I would do. I gave a really short, brief answer. Somebody would say, "Oh, what brought you back to the city?" Or like, "When was your last relationship? What was the reason it ended?" Something like that got brought up. I was very honest. This is key, okay? So I would say, "Well, actually, I was previously engaged and I ended it because the relationship was no longer healthy for me and I chose to focus on myself. And as a result, like I ended it and I ended up going to therapy and doing a lot of work around it. And now I'm in a really great place." So it didn't need to be this whole long drawn out thing. It was sort of like the beginning to the middle to the healing to where I am today, right? You're putting it together in like a perfect little packaged bow. Then I always say the second part. After you've been on dates with somebody, and I say dates because I don't believe that there's necessarily a number, but you want to make sure that you are weeks in, dates in, you're feeling comfortable with this person. This is where you get to share 4 sentences. So remember in school, anybody else have this in school where it's like you learn how to do paragraphs and you had to complete 4 sentences and they're like, correct, A plus. Like that is exactly how you do a paragraph. Congratulations, Carla Romo. Okay, so I did that and I used to hate it. I used to like dread like writing to the fourth. Like I just like make something up on the very last sentence just to get there, just to finish it off. We're going to use the same format that I learned in first grade or whatever grade it was. And that format is you've gone on dates with this person, you're feeling much more comfortable with them, you open up a little bit more. So, for example, the way that I would share is my engagement ended super sudden. I was really taken aback. It was actually very traumatic for me at the time and it was really hard to work through and get through. However, ultimately at the end of the day, like it was important for me to choose myself because I'm in a place where I want to be with somebody who is committed and I want to be with somebody who chooses me and chooses the relationship first. And it was, really terrible, but ultimately, like, I'm really glad that I was able to get through it. And I had this serious support around like my friends and my family. And that's honestly like what helped me really survive and get through such a crazy time in my life. Okay. So I get like, this is not, it's not kind of like textbook reading right now. Make it your own. Okay. Make it your own 100%. Like, you don't need to do the exact perfect thing that I'm saying. And I also want to say this too, because I was telling a client this the other day around sharing, right? Mind you, we'll get to number 3 in just a second. But when you're in between 1 and 2, it's normal to kind of bring up maybe a sentence or two here, right? Like when you're kind of talking about things. For example, if you are talking about what you need in a relationship, for me, it was loyalty. I need somebody who values loyalty. For me, that's really important. And so it's important for you to kind of think about here, right? How do you want to weave those things in? And I talked about it. I said, for me, loyalty is like really important, somebody with integrity. And I can say this because I was able to reflect on my last relationship of things that I valued that weren't there that I really want in a partner. So it's not coming from a fear based place. I need reciprocity. I need loyalty, blah, 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 because I'm worried that something's going to happen in a relationship. No, it's coming from a place of I reflected, I've grown, and this is where I am today. And then number 3 is awesome because this gives you full reins. At this point, you have slowly opened the door. We're not flying the door open. You can remember in Beauty and the Beast where the dresser gets swung open and everything like flies out like crazy. That's sort of like trauma dumping. And now saying that right now, I feel like that's like a dirty scene. I could be wrong. It's been a very long time since I've watched that. I mean, I was like a child, but now that I'm saying it, I'm like, I feel like that was like dirty and really bizarre that they opened the woman's dressers up. Okay, all right. We're gonna gloss over that one, but we're gonna continue that analogy because I think you get what I'm saying. It's like swinging the doors open, everything's flying out. That's sort of the like trauma dumping on a date, right? You're telling everything. There's no gate to like how much. The idea is that you're like slowly opening the door. Because here's the thing. If you are dating somebody new and you open the door with the first step and you're like, this didn't feel right, or they asked a bunch of questions. I don't feel safe talking with them about it. They're prying way too much. They're not respecting my boundaries. Okay, that's great to know. If you all of a sudden realize, oh, this is a safe person to talk to, they're respecting my boundaries, they're letting me pace out how I'm going to explain this and talk about it, green flags, yes, this is great. Okay, That's bare minimum. That's how it should be done. All right. But this is how you slowly build trust, because then when you go to part 2 and you share the 4 sentences and you're opening the door slowly and you're gaining this person's trust and you're seeing what they do with it. We're not testing, but we're just observing. And you're like, wow, this is great. Then when you're in a committed relationship, and it doesn't need to be a committed relationship in the sense you've been dating for months and months and months and been together for years, like it doesn't need to be that. But once you have established, like, we are exclusive, we are dating each other. And as a result, I trust this person. Like, this is who I am choosing to build a relationship with. You can share as much or as little as you want. That is number 3. Share as much or as little as you want. That is up to you. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. In any healthy relationship, you're probably going to be triggered, whether it's the relationship, whether it's something from your past or familial relations, right? Like, all of those things can get triggered in relationships. So being able then to look at it as an ongoing discussion about your trauma and you working through and healing versus looking at it as okay, I shared everything, done. Do they accept me? If you are sharing trauma in a way to see if somebody accepts you, you need to slow down, because I used to do that. And I can tell you right now that that is not how you build trust in a healthy way. That's not how you build vulnerability. It's not how you feel safe or secure emotionally in relationships. So at the end of the day, if you're going to share about your trauma, make sure you follow that process so you can actually build trust, security, emotional intimacy, safety, all that shit right there. But let's talk about it. Okay, I know that a lot of times for people, when it comes to sex, body image plays a massive part in it. Now, I've had lots of clients, men and women, who've had eating disorders, who struggle with just insecurities and confidence around their body and the way that it looks, all the way from penis sizes to boob sizes to the extra fat hanging on your belly. I mean, whatever, right? Like, this spectrum is there. Okay. So it is normal. First and foremost, it is completely normal to have body image and sex kind of clash together. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense of why I didn't want to date until I lost 20 pounds, probably because you didn't want to be naked in front of somebody until maybe you felt or deemed yourself worthy to be naked in front of somebody, or deemed yourself to be attractive because you didn't see yourself attractive. Yes, all of that plays such a huge role in body image and sex. And here's the truth. You cannot enjoy sex when you are constantly thinking about your body image. I know. You want to be able to be like, well, I can just ignore it and like, who cares? No, body image doesn't kill desire. Okay. So you could still be horny AF and be like, yep, I want to have sex. This is great, whatever. But what it actually does is it puts you in your head. Yes, it gets in your head, and then all of a sudden you're overthinking everything. And it can come down to even how you show up sexually. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with you or you need to be fixed, but these are important things to look at and consider, because at the end of the day, you are deserving of being naked in front of somebody. Sometimes you might feel like, oh, we have to turn the lights off. Well, I actually would counter that and say there has been research and professionals out there that say turning the lights on actually can create really great sex, because you can see everything and that can stimulate the physical side. You do not have to be perfect, but maybe there's a part of you that feels like, yeah, I need to be perfect. So you're thinking, how do I look? Does this angle look okay? Are they still attracted to me? Oh no, they're going to say I don't have the most amazing stomach. I don't have abs. I don't have this. Right? Like, all of that overthinking can become so consuming, and it can literally ruin the mood. So here's the thing, and here's kind of a key to kind of get inside your psyche, your sexual psyche, and see if body image is stopping you or preventing you from connecting sexually. Number one, you wait for them to start. Now, this isn't about consent, okay? I am going to be very clear here. This isn't about like consent. We're going to call it consensual. It's just one word. Gosh, I can't say it now. Consensual sex. This doesn't have to do with consensual sex, okay? What I am talking about is that you are hesitant because you're like, I don't want to go. I don't want to do this. And obviously, you do not need to ever have sex. Like, if you don't feel comfortable, like, don't have fucking sex. Like, putting that out there. But what is stopping you is you're like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want this person to see me. So like, if they want to, great, but I'm just going to sit back and then I'm going to kind of like ignore it a little bit and not initiate it, because I don't want to be vulnerable and put myself out there. I don't want to be the one to be like, hey, look at me. And then all of a sudden I'm rejected. Because vulnerability, what's vulnerability? It can set you up for connection or it can set you up for rejection, right? But you cannot get connection without vulnerability. So you got to be vulnerable in order to connect. Another really big thing too that you might notice is you're not actually enjoying the sex. You actually feel disconnected to the person. You're so in your mind, or you're so in your own body mind, I guess that's a thing. We're going to pretend it is, but you're so in your mind around your body that you're no longer in it and connecting with this person sexually, because you're constantly thinking about what angles. You're constantly thinking about, do they find me attractive? You're constantly thinking about, how do I look with this? How do I look with that? And so you can't just relax, and you can't just focus on you, which is key to orgasming, which is key to enjoying pleasure, which is all about relaxing and connecting. But when you are mentally blocked and stopping yourself from getting there, then you don't feel that connection. Also, the idea, this might sound funny and crazy, but maybe I'm reading your mind. The idea of feeling seen can actually be scarier than having sex. This idea of actually somebody seeing you completely naked, butt naked, right? And seeing you in a way that is so vulnerable can feel worse than the act of actually doing it. So it's like sort of the bark is worse than the bite saying, right? Like the idea of it is worse than the actual act. That can also be something, right? That sticks out. Or maybe for yourself, you're performing instead of receiving. So you feel like you need to be a certain way. You can't just be yourself and be in the moment and be with the person. Sex is sort of like a harmony. It's like a dance, right? And sometimes we step on each other's toes, and it's not perfect, but it doesn't mean it's bad. But when you're trying to constantly perform, you're so focused on the performance versus the dance with the person. So you have an expectation in your head of getting it right and nailing it. No pun intended. However, we are going to do a little newscast here. Confidence is actually not needed for sex. Yes, obviously, you want to feel confident, probably sexually, but you actually do not need it to enjoy sex. Presence is the key to actually enjoying sex with someone. So you can still show up sexually, not feel your best, not feel the hottest that you've ever felt, but you can still be present in sex and have enjoyable sex that way. Because the key here is about being here, right? Feeling the feelings, being in the moment, taking it as it comes and as it goes, exploring with somebody versus this idea of having it all together. Nobody has it all together. I can tell you that right now. I mean, I'm honestly going to even use porn as an example. That shit is filmed. It is staged. There is a script. Okay. So if you're like, well, it looks perfect there or whatever, it's like, no. Okay. Sex is not about being perfect. It's about being connected. It's about being seen in a vulnerable way. I know the feelings of being seen can make you feel like, oh my God, I don't know. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're enjoying it for you. You want to make sure you feel safe. That is important. You want to feel safe. You don't have to be confident, but you want to feel safe with somebody and that you're having sex with. Because sometimes the other counter to this is people just have sex with whoever because they feel like, oh, it's my only way of connection. And if I have emotionless sex, then at least I'm doing it to find connection, but I'm never actually getting close to somebody. Intimacy. Into me, I see. Yeah, intimacy, right? That's the way that we can look at that, right? That is how you're intimate, is connection with yourself and being able then to connect with others. So the next time that you get in the sheets with someone and you're worried about your body image, I want you to reframe this. I want you to think about, what does it look like to connect? Yes, I know I'm a coach. I'm telling you a little prompt right now, but let's bear with me, because you wouldn't get this far and you wouldn't be hanging out with me on Carla Turned On if you weren't at this point yet. But I want you to think about, what would it look like? What would it feel like if I was emotionally connected during sex? And that right there is where you can start to having some good sex. And I'm going to throw this out there too. I talk a lot about this in No Filter, the sex guide that every dater needs. You can find that in the show notes, because it is so key to be able to connect, not just physically, but how do we connect emotionally? Because that is where the connection of deep, really great sex. Oh my God, my mind is so dirty. I can't. Of deep, really good sex starts is within yourself. So go fucking get it. Loved this episode? Rate it 5 stars, hit that subscribe button, baby, and leave a review. Do you want to work with me? Grab my dating courses, apply for my coaching at carlaromo.com, or find it all in the show notes, and give me a little follow at I am Carla Romo on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Catch you next time, and stay tuned. Carla Turned On is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This is not a substitute for therapy. For professional support, please reach out to a licensed mental health provider.